Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
Let's do name that stadium, man. You want to take that ball and run with it?
Yeah, so this segment is, as you can see, I travel around to a stadium hosting a game that week. This week, there were a few options that I had, and we'll discuss it next week why I chose what I did. But last week, I think I was in Chicago last week. I wanted to go to a Lions game, point blank. Um,
Okay.
and like the good games of the week, I kind of was I in Chicago last week?
I don't even remember.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Usually I make a mental note, but
I'm pretty sure it was
um,
Chicago. Pretty sure it was Chicago last week.
Soldier Field, that would have been a good one. The Lions two in a row there, and I wasn't expecting that win,
Yeah.
especially with
So
them being down by 14 at the end of the game like that.
yeah, exactly. So I just kind of chose Chicago. I think it was like most. I wanted to go to the Lions game, and a lot of the various other games of the week were. I was already at that stadium. I was already at that stadium. So I went with Chicago. Let me verify. I'm
Okay.
99% sure that's what it was. That I remember that thought process, but I just want to
Gotcha.
look to make
Yeah, well,
sure
yeah.
that.
So while you're checking
Anyways,
it out, yeah, we'll just let everybody know that, basically name that stadium. If you think you know where James is at, hit us up in our comments section. Whoever gets the right answer first, we'll give you a special shout out in next week's show. It is priceless. Just do it. We're telling you, you'll love it. We'll even bookmark it. I mean, it'll be like your 15 seconds of fame. If you haven't had it before, you might want it. So come on.
yeah, I was at Chicago. I had
Okay.
the options, but I was already at Buffalo. I was already at Tennessee. I had already been at a lot of the stadiums that were hosting games last week. So
Hit up the win sig. I like it. Okay, well, let's move it on, man. Let's do our recap of the past week. And so, we've had, pretty good flow this year, just kind of talking about upsets and then injuries and then kind of hitting like the news. And so, looking back at week 10, there were a couple upsets, in my opinion. Maybe some of them you could have kind of seen coming, but, I think a few of the ones that stuck out for sure uh, were Green Bay over Dallas. I thought that was a shocker. Uh, Indy over Las Vegas. Man, I thought, oh my God, it just gets worse and worse for Vegas every week. And then I think, Monday night game, Washington beating Philly. That was another one I wasn't expecting. Those divisional games like that, anything can kind of happen. But, um, and then I don't know, like I said, I wasn't expecting Detroit to get the win over Chicago, but that was not as extreme as some of these other ones. And then even Minnesota over Buffalo. We got those two teams really high on our power rankings, but I think a lot of people were pretty shocked about the way that went down, especially at the end of the game.
yeah, that one it was a weird game. Like I didn't get to watch. I do have when we get to the pick segment, I do have a bone to pick with you on something that you messed up on. But
Oh boy.
the Bills, it I didn't get to see much of it, but it looked like Allen just is struggling, and like he came out and said he's trying to do too much and this and that. But I'm wondering if his elbow is worse than we've heard it is
It
because
could
he's
be.
it's been a couple weeks now since he hurt his elbow that he's been kind of erratic throwing the ball, and
Yeah, I think they were saying what, 6 picks in 3 weeks.
yeah, so.
That's a lot for him, man.
Mhm.
And then another one on kind of on the lower end of the scale, but I was a little bit surprised to see Carolina get that win over Atlanta too. Um, another one of those divisional games, so they're a little bit unpredictable. And Carolina's been running great lately with Donta Foreman and so I don't know, but either way, I thought Atlanta was on a better path, and then
Mhm.
Mariota just had a rough week, kind of shot him down. So
Yeah, it was probably due for Mariota. He'd been playing pretty well lately, so he was probably due for that hiccup game. But That was I was surprised when I modeled it out and it came up with Carolina in the model, but I couldn't in my model, but I couldn't find a reason to override it, and like the score I had on it was 27-21, so it was a little bit high, and I mean it was about that, but I don't I don't know. I think I think Atlanta's been a little erratic. Haven't been as consistent as they should be, especially for a team that's probably the favorite in that division.
It's such a bad division.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. No, I mean, hey, they came into the year. I had like zero expectations for them, and then they played some really good football, and so I started kind of getting on the bandwagon. And then we see, like you said, this kind of hiccup with Mariota, sort of like regressing to the mean or whatever you want to call it. But they're still having a good year overall. I think they're still outperforming my expectations, and so that's good. But it is what it is. And so then, James, on the injury front, I saw something about Chase Young still out, not going to play. I saw Mecole Hardman for the Chiefs. Looks like they're putting him on IR for at least 4 weeks with an abdomen injury. And then on positive injury related news, it looks like we got a whole lot of wide receivers coming back.
Hmm.
Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, supposedly both going to play this week. And then Hollywood Brown, they're saying is trending in that direction to play on Monday night for the Cardinals. And so that's positive, I guess.
Yeah, and one thing that might affect the games this week is Lamar. Supposedly he's going to be okay, but he's been sick, so that might affect games this weekend for people if Lamar is
Gotcha.
not playing. Something to monitor.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so then in other news, James, I saw the Jets signed Laurent Duvernay-Tardif to help kind of beef up their offensive line a little bit. And then the Eagles, they brought in Ndamukong Suh to beef up their defensive line, which, we know just a couple weeks ago before the trade deadline, they brought over Robert Quinn. I like they're just making sure, they had some injuries and they just want to stay as stacked as possible for their playoff run. And Sue, definitely a rotational guy at this point of his career, but can still be a factor in the right situations.
Yeah, he can be. And didn't the Eagles they signed two defensive linemen and they've lost one to an injury, at least a temporary injury. I'm trying to remember. And then the concern was that well his if they're signing um two players for that position, then the thought is that he's going to be out longer. Who was it?
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank, but I want to say it's one of their. I thought it was a defensive end, but Sue's not an end.
Yeah.
Uh, but it could have just been bringing him in for depth, and then they shuffle it around. I don't really know, but yeah, I mean, hey, they're smart to just jump on it as quick as possible.
Yeah, I'm seeing if I can pull it up real quick. So I'm drawing a blank on it too. You might be right. It might have been a defensive end.
Yeah, man,
It was. It
shoot
was.
ski. I didn't.
Oh no, it was defensive tackle. It was Jordan Davis.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. Well, then that's more fitting for Sue to come in. That's
Yeah.
a role that he can slide right into. And, Jordan Davis was a rookie, kind of rotating in anyhow. So, not the end of the world, but prudent to get Sue.
Yeah. Wow. So they signed Linville Joseph, and then the next day they signed Sue, but they also put Marlon Tuipulotu on IR.
Oh, yeah. 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 So that was like the net of all the moves. I gotcha.
Yeah, yeah, because they lost Jordan
Okay.
Davis 2 weeks ago, ish.
Gotcha. That's all I had for news, man. Whatever you want to add in there, just go ahead, sprinkle it on, bud.
I think that's about it. You had the change in locale for the Buffalo game because of the snow. And then this morning after the game, the offensive coordinator for the Titans had a DUI apparently on his way home from the flight.
Okay, so maybe a little bit of partying on the trip back.
Yeah. So the plane landed at 2:07 a.m. and the offensive coordinator Todd Downing got charged with DUI at 4:36 a.m.
Gotcha.
So the league sent out a memo reminding teams of the policy of no drinking on team flights, and then the Commanders punished a lot of players for drinking on the team flight.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that about that policy, but you know, okay. You
Yeah.
know, I could see, flying there, maybe like, yeah, you don't want anybody doing anything because you got to get ready for the game and whatever else. But on the way back, it seems like you could let them let loose, but I don't know. Hey, probably better to be safe than sorry. So,
Well, yeah, because I think it creates a liability if somebody gets drunk on the flight and then drives home. It creates a liability for the team and the league.
oh yeah, and I'm not saying anything about driving, I'm just saying like just purely looking at the flight thing,
Yeah,
because they could have rides lined up hypothetically.
true.
you know. I mean if I was in the NFL, I had all that dough, I would be having rides lined up, man.
Well,
But I guess you're right. Time and
the,
time again we find out that's not the case.
but the thing of it is, and the weird thing of it is, trying to think of his name. He's former offensive lineman of Pittsburgh, and he played for the Jets. Willie McGinnis said that I heard him say that basically, the NFL has people on call in every
Oh yeah,
city
I've heard that.
that they have like a number you call if you drank too much, you just call, and within minutes you'll have a ride.
Yeah, and I've heard barely anybody takes it up.
Yeah,
Barely anybody uses it.
exactly. Which is, I mean, shit. Half the time, I wish I had that. Well, now with like Uber, but
Yeah,
I mean, back in
yeah.
the day before Uber existed, when we were on the old flip phones, I wish I had something like that available.
Oh
There
yeah,
many times I would have
dude.
taken it up.
Yeah, we would like sling up like different taxis in our address books just because you never knew which one was still in business or was running that night or whatever. And it just,
Yeah,
we did good, man. We did good pre Uber, but yeah, it's a different day now,
hmm
and we don't need it now because we're not out partying like that as much. But if we ever are, it's good to have it available.
yeah. Aren't out partying as much because we got old.
And have kids and yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Responsibility, things to lose that we didn't have before. Oh yeah, all that stuff. But all right, man, why don't we move it over? Let's look at our week 11 power rankings. And so, James, whenever you're ready, man, why don't you give me your 1 through 5?
All right. So there's a little bit of a shake up in my 1 through 5. Actually, only one team. I only have two teams from last week's top five that remained in the top five. Number one, I'm sorry, three teams. Number one, I have Kansas City. They moved up one spot. Philadelphia lost, so there was an obvious drop for them. Number two, I have Minnesota. I moved Minnesota up 6 spots off that one for Buffalo. I really like how Minnesota's playing, and I
Nice.
think I think I think if you went back to the week 2 loss to Philadelphia, which was the last time Minnesota lost, you go back to that loss and you play that game this week, I think the outcome might be different.
Okay.
Number 3, I have Baltimore. Baltimore was on a bye. I left them there. Number 4, I have San Francisco. They moved up 2 spots. This is kind of more of a function of the board than being really too impressed with San Francisco's win. Yeah, it was the Chargers, but the Chargers have been tail spinning down. So, but they got the 2 spot bump because teams in front of them dropped a little bit. At number
Sure.
5, I have Philadelphia. They dropped 4 spots after losing to Washington. I just, the inevitable was going to happen, and they were going to lose. But I did not like that loss to Washington, especially how Washington basically, from what I saw and from what I heard, because I was driving during a portion of the game. I thought Washington basically dominated the game.
They had like the perfect game plan.
Yeah.
They just controlled the clock the whole time, and it was like a lot of just Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson just like pounding the rock, milking the clock, and then when they needed to, Heineke would make some throws, and it was like everything they needed to work was working. And Philly, I'll say this: when Philly got the ball, they were in the first half at least like as electric as they always were, where they would score very quickly, and then you could tell in the second half it started to change because it was almost like maybe they're getting cold because they were just barely on the field, and so it ended up slowing them down quite a bit as the game went on. But I mean, I forget what it was. It was almost like 40-20 or something, like the time split. It was
Yeah.
huge, man.
It was. I forget exactly what it was too, but it was not very impressive on the end
No.
of Philadelphia. Like, yeah, okay, it was an 11-point game, which ironically, the spread was Philadelphia favored by 11.
Okay.
So I thought that was a little funny quirk, but yeah, time of possession was, where is it? It was 40 and a half to 19 and a half.
Yeah, that's insane, dude. That's a monster freaking split.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, looking at my 1 through 5 here, James, I didn't go too crazy with the board. And really from top to bottom, I didn't go too crazy. I feel like a lot of the teams that are out there, we know who they are at this point, and so whether they won or lost, I only did like really kind of minimal adjustments just because I need to see maybe more trending before doing anything bigger at this point in the year. But either way, at 1, I've got the Chiefs. I moved them up there. I almost kept Philly there because I just kind of felt like, Philly's allowed to have a bad game too, and they're still freaking 8-1. But I wanted to drop them just because, it was a loss to Washington, like you said. And so at 2, I've got Philly, and I'm just dropping them a tad, but I still think they're one of the best teams out there. 3, I got Minnesota. I moved them up 1 spot. They capitalized on Buffalo's mistakes at the end of that game. Otherwise, I think it would have been a different outcome. Either way, that's football, man. And I'm definitely warming up to Minnesota being this high on my board. So it's nice seeing you put them at 2 because I thought I've had them really high for a long time. But glad to know I'm not the only one. At 4, I got Buffalo. I dropped them down 1 spot. They're losing games in really just kind of bad fashion where sort of like fluke things are happening to them. And I think this week against Cleveland is going to be a good test for them now because, good teams, they will tighten it up. They'll bounce back. When you have like 2 in a row like Buffalo did that were just kind of like flukish sort of losses, sometimes that shit gets in your head. And so I think this Cleveland game is going to be a big deal for them. And then at 5, I've got Baltimore. They didn't play, so I didn't move them. Back to you at 6, man.
All right. At 6, I have Miami. I moved them up 3 spots. It's a function of a couple teams ahead of them dropped, and I feel like I killed Miami too much, and then they went out. Yeah, Cleveland's a different team with Brissett versus when they get Watson back after this week, but I just feel like Miami's playing that good right now. 7, I have Cincinnati. They didn't play. I'm not going to move them. Or I might move them, but I'm just right now, it depends on what happens around the board. I didn't move Cincinnati because not too much crazy went on the board around them.
Sure.
8, I have Buffalo. I dropped them 3 spots. The thing with Buffalo that concerns me is there is, like I said before, Allen has, there's something wrong there. And the question I have is, why the fuck did you trade for Naheem Hines if you're not going to try to run the ball? Like what was the purpose of that trade? Number 9, I have Dallas. I dropped Dallas 5 spots, and the reason I dropped Dallas 5 spots, yeah, they gave up a big lead against Green Bay. They lost to Green Bay, but Dallas has a Dak Prescott problem. They're trying
explain that to me.
They're trying to, because Dak Prescott is a higher paid quarterback. They're trying to fit the offensive game plan to Dak Prescott, not make him
like air it out because we got Dak. We got to appease him.
If they go back to win, what's his name?
Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush. If they go back to when they were playing, the reason they were continuing to win games with Cooper Rush is because they were running the ball, and they weren't making Cooper Rush do too much. You should do that with Dak. You know, run the ball, which running the ball will open up the passing game a little bit. They also should. It's time. It's time for Zeke to be the number 2. There's reasons to keep him in there. Yes, I agree. So on passing downs, potential passing downs, put him in there for his pass blocking ability. But you got to run the ball more with Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is like some crazy stat. He's averaging like 6 yards a fucking carry this year. And
yeah, he's more explosive, and he has been for a couple of years. We know.
Exactly. And he's the better running back. I've been saying that for a couple of years too. He's the better running back.
I like Zeke, like you're saying, for his pass blocking skills, and I also like Zeke for milking the clock because he is a grinder, man, and he'll fight for that like 4 yards every carry. You know, Tony Pollard, he's got that pop, but he's also, you know, it's a little boom or bust with him sometimes too. And so I think they really have a perfect complement if they just committed to using them both in their right roles.
Yeah, exactly. And then at 10, I have Tennessee. I didn't move them, even though Tennessee won. Okay. I was trying to remember. My notes on Tennessee are a little sparse.
Yeah, they got the win over Denver.
Yeah, they beat Denver. It was Denver. It was a low scoring game, like I called it. I knew it was going to be a low scoring game. But it's kind of also like when you look at this at number 10, and there's a lot of no change in here because a lot of teams won or lost, and it was fairly consistent right here on my board. Yeah. But I couldn't put them behind the Giants, even though the Giants did beat them. I thought that was a kind of a flukish win by the Giants, and I couldn't put them ahead of Dallas because I think Dallas could be like. It's just, who do I think is better right now, and I couldn't really move them off of the win.
Oh, I know what you're saying. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to navigate the board, man. All right, so for me at 6, I got the Dolphins. I thought it was a nice win over Cleveland, and I gave them a 2-spot bump. In part, they got the benefit of Dallas falling down the board, which helped them. And so at 7, I've got Cincinnati. They didn't play, so I didn't move them. At 8, I've got Tennessee. I moved them up 1 spot. I like how well Vrabel has got the team playing. I know that it was Denver, so not a whole lot going on there offensively against them. But they just, they started off the year so bad. And I thought, like, oh, my God, it's finally going to happen. Like, their lack of talent is going to catch up to them. Not the case. They've been playing great football ever since. At 9, I've got the 49ers. I thought it was a good win over the Chargers. But like you pointed it out, the Chargers, they've been in trouble this year. They're still struggling with a ton of injuries. And so you're talking teams with 2 different trajectories. So I only bumped up the 49ers by 1 here. And then at 10, I got Dallas. I moved them down 4 spots. And it was really one of the biggest drops on my board for this week, only because of how poorly Green Bay had been playing up until this point. Otherwise, I really like Dallas. I just had to spank them a little bit for the ugly loss, man. Back to you at 11, homie.
From 11 through 15, there was absolutely no change on my board. I had the Giants. Yeah, the Giants won, but so did Tennessee. I mean, I couldn't really move them. Chargers, they lost. Jets behind them also lost. I'm sorry, we're on a bye. Cleveland, which is who I have at 13, is the Jets. They're on a bye, didn't move them. Cleveland lost. Cleveland lost to Miami, which I have higher up. I didn't feel comfortable really dropping them off of that loss because I think with Brissett, you are going to have that erraticness. This is kind of let's just kind of try to wait it out and see who they are when Watson comes back. And then at 15, New England was on a bye. I left them where they were.
I got you. Yeah, and I've not been nice to Cleveland. 3 and 6. I got them a lot farther down on the board, but I'm sure they'll come around once Watson's back, and that's okay. Yeah, so at 11, I've got the Giants as well. I moved them up one spot. They beat a team in the dumpster fire, so I'm not going crazy, but they have a monster record. They're at 7-2, so I mean, I'm all right with them being at 11 on my board. Never thought that they would be here to start the year, but that's all right. Good for them, man. 12, I've got the Buccaneers. I moved them up 3 spots. Like I told you last week, James, I've been having a hard time letting go on these guys because we know how much talent is on that roster. 3-spot bump may be a little bit aggressive this week, but I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt of having a couple good weeks of football. Looks like things are maybe finally coming into place for these guys, but I'll be keeping a close eye on them. 13, I've got the Seahawks. I dropped them down 2 with Tampa Bay getting that win against Seattle. It just kind of felt appropriate just to do a little flip-flop here on my board. 14, I've got the Jets. They didn't play like you mentioned, so I didn't move them. And then at 15, I got the Chargers. And I'll say this about the Chargers. I think Herbert is looking a lot better from where he was with that rib issue early on. And, man, the way that he leads his wide receivers is like phenomenal, James. And so I'm excited to see with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen coming back if that just like totally lights the spark for this team because he's all over it. And he's been passing really good with a lot of backups. But there's just so many problems on that team. So either way, I dropped him down 2. Back to you at 16, homie.
16, I have Seattle. I left them here, even though they lost to a team that I had way down on the board. One of the things when I looked at the game, and I think I called this out at the beginning of the game, not at the beginning, last week, when I picked Seattle to win, and I was concerned about it because of the travel. This game concerned me a lot. I think the travel going from Seattle to Germany kind of hindered them a little bit in the game. They kept it close, and they were almost able to come back completely. They just fell a little bit short. I didn't really feel like I didn't feel comfortable dropping them because I thought it was more of a travel than something with the team, a travel issue. 17, I have Arizona. While they beat the Rams, I've killed the Rams a long time ago and put them there. The Rams were without Stafford, and I didn't. They lost to Seattle. This feels right for Arizona to me for some reason. Right around here, they got to show a little bit more consistency for me. 18, I have Washington. I gave them a 4-spot bump after beating Philadelphia. If Arizona would have lost, it might have been more than a 4-spot bump. If it was, and also, with them, when they start getting players back, they might move back up the board. If they start being consistent, they might move further up the board. But this feels about right for where they are right now for Washington. 19, I have New Orleans. Dropped them down 1 spot. I don't even remember who they played last week, but it was probably they lost to the Steelers, which at Pittsburgh, which I kind of expected. I couldn't really give them much more of a drop because a bunch of teams behind them right here lost, and if I did gave them more of a drop than some teams that I wouldn't feel comfortable putting in the top 20 would have ended up in the top 20, and so I left them at 19. Atlanta dropped them down one spot after losing to Carolina. It's kind of the same thing. I think Atlanta probably would have dropped further after losing to Carolina, but again, teams behind them lost, so it would have put teams that I don't feel are top 20 teams into the top 20.
I got you. Okay, so at 16, I've got Washington. I moved them up 2 spots this week, James. I like how, and they talked about it a lot in the game, how that the players are rallying around Heineke.
Mhm.
And I think that that's given this team a good momentum boost. Brian Robinson, as I mentioned, is also running really hard, really strong. That's helping that offense move. And so that's good for that team. I think they're trending in the right direction right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Wentz because he could be cleared to play anytime now. And I don't know that you change back to him if they're winning with Heineke, to be
So,
honest. Just
so
my
that
opinion.
you mentioned that, and I had heard something. I haven't been able to confirm it, but I thought I heard Rivera came out and said that even when Wentz is back, Heineke's the quarterback.
Okay, well then that's good. I've not heard that, but I think that that's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
All right,
I'll
so
try
then
to verify while we go through, but
sure, yeah. And so at 17, I've got the Packers. I moved them up 4 spots. You know, like we talked about, with the way they've been playing all year, I didn't think they had a chance at hell at beating Dallas, but they did it. I thought it was a solid coming out party for Christian Watson. You know, we just got to see, can they build off of that momentum. They've not been able to all year. At 18, I've got the Rams. I dropped them down 2 spots. This was a really tough game to gauge because you got 2 backup quarterbacks playing. But we know that the Rams, they've been in trouble all year. And so either way, it's just garbage for them. At 19, I've got the Falcons. I dropped them down 2 spots. Yeah, I mean, hey, I was pumping up Mariota last week, and he ended up sucking this week. And so it is what it is. But still happy with how they've been playing this year. At 20, I got the Patriots. They didn't play, so I didn't move them. And so whenever you are ready, I'll let you take it over at 21. Or if you're still looking, I can do 21 through 25 and then kick it over to you.
no, I'm good. I found the quote by Rivera. He said, "You have to look at momentum. You have to look at what the mood of the team is. Obviously, you look at what is best for the team, and at the end of the day, that's how it has to be." So
Okay.
it wasn't that he was definitely the starter. It's we have to see what's best for the team and look
Yeah.
at all the factors. Okay. Anyways, 21. I have Houston. I dropped them 1 spot. They lost to I don't even remember who they lost to. Why am I drawing a blank on all
Giants.
these? They lost to the Giants. I have the Giants up so high on my board
Yeah.
that
You've been sick all week, dude. You get a pass. You've been
that
sick all week.
that I have the Giants so high. I didn't want to really kill them much. Plus, like there's a lot of flux on my board in this range, and I'm trying to figure out what's who is right where. And since it was only the Giants, and it was a 1-score game, I felt comfortable leaving them here. 22, Jacksonville dropped 1 spot. They lost to the Chiefs. Everyone loses to the Chiefs. I didn't want to kill them, so I only dropped them 1 spot because of the loss there. Plus, I had moved Washington up from this spot, so that's why not this spot. The movement from 21. Sorry. 23, I have Pittsburgh. I moved Pittsburgh up 3 spots. It's a decent bump. They're looking like they're getting better. Yeah, they only beat New Orleans, but consistency on the team. It looks like Kenny Pickett's he's starting to progress properly, and that defense is starting to shore up a little bit. So I think I can see Pittsburgh going further up the board as the weeks move on.
Nice.
24, Carolina. They also moved up 3 spots. It was a good win against Atlanta. I'm kind of guilty a little bit of overreacting and that this might be an overreaction here to move them up 3 spots. I'd like to see a little bit more consistency from them, but I mean, they're in the playoff race. They should be in the top 25. 25, Tampa Bay. I moved them up 3 spots. Like you, I moved them up 3 spots. I just had them way lower than you do on the board. I don't see anything promising from Tampa Bay. Yeah, they beat Seattle in Germany, but on the flip side, they didn't look any better in that game. Brady was still missing receivers like he has been all year. They almost gave that game back. I didn't feel comfortable bumping them much more than this. I think 3 spots is a little aggressive based on what I'm seeing from the team.
I gotcha. All right, well, cool. So I got Chicago at 21, James. I dropped them 2 spots. I just kind of felt like the end of that Lions game was a bit flukish, and I still think that Fields is well on his way now to being that franchise quarterback that Chicago wanted him to be. And so I didn't feel like there was any reason to try and flip him somehow on the board with Detroit or do any kind of crazy move like that. But, that's okay. I mean, I could understand, these teams are record wise, they're like in that range and you could do a lot with them. I just have a lot more faith, I think, in Chicago now, having seen Fields throughout the year. But at 22, I've got Arizona. I moved them up 1. Same kind of note as what I had for the Rams. Tough to gauge it with 2 backup quarterbacks playing. 23, I got the Colts. I moved them up 1 spot. It was nice for Jeff Saturday to get the win. But, man, holy cow. Vegas is just freaking horrible. So I'm not going to get too excited yet for the Colts. At 24, I've got Cleveland. And holy cow, they just the Deshaun Watson return cannot get here quick enough. I mean, their playoff hopes, they're like dwindling away, dude. They're like almost gone. And I thought they could have got in without him because they were so stacked, and it just, whatever they're doing is not working. And then at 25, I've got Pittsburgh. I bumped them up 4 spots. I thought it was a respectable win. Even though New Orleans has been kind of garbage lately, and really most of the year for that matter. But a lot of respect for Tomlin and company. And, I think every week, we're going to see Pickett potentially getting a little bit better. And, you got TJ Watt coming back. And so that's going to help him on the defensive side. And so, Pittsburgh, the arrow should be pointing in the right direction, even though this is still really just kind of a lost year for them as they sort of rebuild at that quarterback position. Back to you, 26, man.
26, I have Denver. With Denver, I dropped them 2 spots. I think kind of with them, the thing was I did move 2 teams that I had ahead of them to behind them. And I didn't feel comfortable putting 27, 28 above them, which is Detroit and Indianapolis, who both got 3 spots bumps. It's 3 spot bumps. Like, I had Chicago and Detroit at 29-30 last week. And so a flip was obvious for that. But also,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Also with 2 teams that are really tail spinning, dropping a huge number that were way ahead of them, it kind of ended up being a 3 spot bump instead of just a 1 spot bump for Detroit, and same with Indianapolis. And Chicago, okay, I have them at 29. I had them at 29 last week, but I would have dropped them. It's really a 2 spot drop for them, but I took 2 teams ahead of them and put them behind them based on where they're playing. And one of those teams is the Rams, who I dropped 7 spots. And I'm out on the Rams. If Green Bay would have won more convincingly against Dallas, the Rams would have been in my dumpster fire.
Oh, that's awesome. There's no mercy on your board, James. I respect that. All right, at 26, I got Denver. I didn't move them. I just, with how well Tennessee's been playing and how much higher they are up on the board, I thought, hey, keep Denver where they're at. I think they're better than the teams below them. It just felt right. 27, I got Carolina, moved them up 4 spots. Like we talked about, I'm digging how well they're running the ball with Deonta Foreman. I liked him coming out of college, man, and it's great to see that it's finally working for him. I think that, man, I think that honestly, it's almost like these guys could be a little bit of a poor man's version of Seattle, where if they commit to the running game like they have been, and they keep playing strong defense, they could start stringing together some wins. And you know, I don't know. Let's just see. I think with Steve Wilkes, it looks like that's his game plan. He's not messing around trying to milk something out of their quarterbacks because he knows ain't none of them getting anything done. And so I think that that's good. Stick to the blueprint that works. At 28, I got Detroit. I moved them up 2 spots. And James, I don't know, man. Back-to-back wins. It's weird. It's like they're winning, but I still just don't feel comfortable with them. Maybe it's the way that they're winning. Maybe it's that I'm just a Lions fan and I've been abused and I've got all sorts of trauma over the years. But I moved them up 2 spots, and it's weird, man. It's weird. It's like I'm hesitant to do it. At 29, I've got the Saints. I dropped them down 4. Man, you know, I had a note here where I thought, maybe these guys are just intentionally tanking to get a good quarterback in this year's draft. And then I was like, nope, probably not, because they don't have a first-round pick this year. So they just legitimately suck, even though they've got so much talent.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 30, James, I've got Jacksonville. I dropped them down 3 spots. And, you know, the wins haven't been racking up for the team, but the effort's been there. And I like the pieces that they have for the future. It's just about having patience with these guys. And so they're at the bottom of the board just because they've not had the results. But I do see them getting there in time. And so over to you, my friend, with the dumpster fire.
So I have Green Bay at 31. And yeah, they beat a team that I had higher up on the board than them. I just didn't have faith in them. And last night kind of proved that. Like, the Green Bay is playing right now like the worst division in the NFC, or worst team in the NFC North. And that's sad to say, seeing as though you have Chicago and Detroit as the other 2 teams in the division that I think are playing better than Green Bay. And at 32, I have Vegas. I dropped them 7 spots. And the only question I have on this is, how does Josh McDaniels still have a fucking job?
Dude, I don't know, man. I heard a rumor about Sean Payton potentially being in the mix for a coaching change, but
what I heard this week was what's his face, Davis, his whatever. It's not Al, it's his son, whatever. Mark Davis, I think. Basically came out and said he liked what he sees from Josh McDaniels and whoever the fuck the GM is. He likes what he sees and gave the vote of confidence, which I think
that's what I heard.
Which is like, is he talking like out his ass that like he's giving McDaniels the vote of confidence while secretly talking to Sean Payton and the New Orleans Saints? I don't know, but I just don't know how. Like, he should have been fired after that loss to Indy. He should have been fired months ago. This team has been rudderless without him, and I don't know if I brought this up a few weeks ago. I had heard some shit that like McDaniels does from former players of his in when he was in Denver. Like, he would start every day practice with film from the previous practice and basically berate guys that made mistakes the previous day in practice. And shit like other shit like that. Like, it's just like, hopefully he's not doing that still, but
yeah,
it's like, how is this happening? I'm gonna look for it because I don't think I mentioned it to you.
All right.
But
yeah,
I'll
check
look
it out,
for
man. Yeah. So
there was
all
a
right, my
string of
dumpster fire. Oh, it sounds bad, dude. And I mean, honestly, if Frank Reich could get fired midseason while their team was still very playoff capable record wise, I'm not sure how you're hanging on to Josh McDaniels. It's it's a disaster. Pull the plug. There's nothing wrong. There's no reason to commit to him long term. This is a team that has talent, and it was a freaking playoff team last year. Like, come on. I mean, it's just stupid. And so I've got him at 31. I moved him down 3 spots. They're definitely dumpster fire. At 32, I've still got Houston, which is just tough sledding for these guys. They can't catch a break. I want so badly to move them up, but I can't because they still only have 1 win, James. So, yeah.
All right, so here it is. After they traded away Jay Cutler, this was from who is this?
Man, this was a while ago.
Right, no, but this is from when he was coach of Denver.
Yeah.
He's after trading away basically the nucleus of the offense, including Jay Cutler. Josh McDaniels said to the entire team, "Fellas, don't worry about the QB situation. I can turn a high school quarterback into an all-pro." After completing training camp with fully padded 2-a-days, as often as was legal, he hyped up a special reward after practice. It was an ice cream truck and a t-shirt that said Iron Man. Every single day began with a 10-minute bad football reel from the day before where he would dog cuss you and your coach for any bad play from practice 24 hours ago. After the season, he had his exit interview with his coach. This was Tyler Columbus. He had his exit interview with his coach. Where is it? After season, he spent with my coach. He spent 10 minutes telling me everything I sucked at, but he looked so depressed and miserable that when he was done, I didn't care what he said about my play. I was concerned for him. Coach, are you all right? Response: That's a hard man to work for. Me. So are you coming back, Coach? Hell no. Me. You getting fired or leaving? Coach, I don't care, but I'm getting the hell out of here.
Oh, jeez. He's a whack job, dude.
Yeah. So basically, it's no surprise that the Raiders suck. But how he still has a job at 2-7 after being a fucking playoff team last year, who knows? Haven't they lost? They lost like their last 3 games. Like they lost to the Saints, the Jaguars, and the Colts. Like the only two teams they've beaten this year are the Texans and the fucking Broncos.
Yeah, it's not good for them, dude.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Maybe they're holding on to him and going to fire him after losing to Belichick in what's that week? Let's see, 11, 12, 13, 14. In week 15, after they lose to Belichick, and you just like, you know what, you're out of here.
Yeah,
but it's
game over.
I don't know how he still has a job.
It's horrible, dude. It's horrible. I mean, we're at that time of the year where if you're going to do it, because I don't know, it doesn't even matter now. You might as well see if there's somebody else out there that can at least get you a jump start on the head coaching search.
Yeah.
But, that's okay. All right, man. Well, here, let's move it on over and let's do our week 11 game picks. And so, James, you had a bone to pick with me. I'm guessing I tallied us up wrong here, man. So why don't you start us off with that?
So my bone to pick is last week after I picked the Rams-Cardinals game. I said, and I quote,
Yes.
If Stafford is not playing, I'm not going to text you. Straight up, I'm switching to Arizona. I don't care.
Oh, well, yeah. So here, let's just adjust it, dude. I didn't change the sheet. There you go. There you go. I did it. It's done. You got your extra win there, and your grievance has been resolved, my friend. No, hey, that's cool, man. No, I mean, I was worried that you were going to say that that you didn't get one because, like, the way the formula is built is you got to spell the team name perfect.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't match up, you don't get credit for it. And so I thought it might have been something like that, but
No,
no, that's easy.
That's why I do when I make my pick. I go over, like, say, like last week last night we were both on Tennessee, so I copy and paste Tennessee from the column on the left over, so to make sure it matches.
Yeah.
So I know it will match, so there's no issue with it. And if it was a formula issue, I would blame myself because I was the one that fucking put the formula in.
All right. Well, yeah. Hey. Well, and I could have put in the scores wrong too. I could have flipped them by mistake or whatever. But
yeah,
it's all good. Either way, hey, we got to hold each other accountable. That's what this is about. And so, season to date here, James, you're sitting at 81 wins, good for 54%. I'm sitting at 86 wins, which is good for 58%. This past week, we both kind of sucked it up and only had 50% each with 7 wins. And so one of our down weeks, we've been doing a lot better in recent weeks, still kind of lagging overall compared to where we've been at in past years. And so we're running out of time, man. We got to start lighting the shit up, dude.
Yeah. But to be fair, this last week, there were quite a few surprise wins on there. And I think that's a little bit of why I went 500 on my overrides previous to I didn't even run Arizona back through my model after it. I just knew I had changed to them, but I had overrode Seattle to pick Seattle and Miami instead, so I was 500. I think you were.
I was also 500 this past week.
You were.
No, we both had 7 wins.
Oh, okay. No, with your overrides, you were 500 as well because you had 2 of them as well.
Oh, gotcha.
So.
Yeah, I missed on Chicago. Yeah, my model had Detroit, and I couldn't do it. I was like, no way, man.
No, so. I was something told me Detroit in the game, and I was tempted to override it, but when I modeled it out, I had it as Chicago by like a touchdown, and I didn't feel comfortable overriding a touchdown just on a gut feeling.
Yeah, too big of a spread. I got you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, why don't you take it away with the picks for this week, man?
Like I said, both of us were last week on Tennessee, Green Bay, or last week. Both of us were on Tennessee. I actually, a little story about that is my model picked Green Bay, and I almost texted you, like when we were talking about switching next week, I almost responded, oh yeah, and I'm switching to Green Bay, but I was like, no, something's not right. I'm not going to believe it, and left it at Tennessee, which I'm glad I did.
Gotcha.
So first up, we have Chicago Bears at the Atlanta Falcons. And, this game was, with how Atlanta's been playing, where is my notes?
Oh, James, I forgot to mention Khalil Herbert. Herbert got put on IR too, which that's a big blow for Chicago, man. He's been running the ball great for them.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
I missed that. And also, I forgot to mention that Cam Jordan is not going to play for the Saints this week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was like
eye issue.
Okay, and this is like his first game he's ever missed or something. It's like a big deal.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think it changed much in my model, but I missed the Khalil Herbert news, which that makes more sense to me on it. The Bears apparently are the first team in NFL history to lose 3 straight games while scoring more than 29 points in each of those games.
Oh, man.
Somebody sat down and figured this out. Apparently, there's been teams that have lost 3 straight games that scored 28 or more points in each of those games, but nobody has lost
Didn't that
4.
just happen with Detroit?
I don't know. I didn't put that who it was in my notes, but
Sure.
So Chicago could be the first team to lose 4 straight games while scoring 28 or more points if they score more than 28 or more this week, which is absurd to think about. Historically, Chicago's defense does not give up points. Even when they've been bad, they really didn't. They still had a solid defense and didn't give up much points. When I ran through the model, I have it as a 3-point victory for Atlanta. I tried to figure out a way to override it because I don't like how Atlanta's been playing. But especially with the Herbert news that I missed, I'm not going to override it. I'm going to stick with Atlanta.
I gotcha. Yeah, I'm with Atlanta also here. When I look at my heat map, it's almost all green for Atlanta. I've tried finagling with it just because I'm so high on Fields, but there really wasn't much I could do to like move the ticker over the other way, and so at least not without like doing things too drastic. And so I'm sticking with Atlanta here.
All right, next up we have the Carolina Panthers at the Baltimore Ravens. So this is an interesting one. And I don't know.
Okay.
It's a 13-point spread on the game. Apparently, Carolina is in their last 16 games where they've been a double-digit underdog. They are 1-15. That win happens to be Week 7 against the Buccaneers. That was their last time they were a double-digit underdog, which I just found that interesting if you're trying to look at trends on it or narrative. Ravens currently are on the longest single season streak by any team for having 150 or more rushing yards in a game at 8. Only 4 teams in the Super Bowl era have done that, have had longer streaks. And that was 72, 73 Dolphins, 75 Steelers, 85 Bears. Interestingly enough, all of those teams won the Super Bowl. Maybe a precursor there.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I like that stat, man.
I have this as an 8-point victory by Baltimore. I feel it's pending to change if depending on Lamar Jackson's health, because he's ill, so he has a sickness. So I'm going to stick with Baltimore for now, but if I may or may not, I may have to revisit this if Lamar Jackson is kept out. I think he's questionable currently.
Sure. Yeah. If he's out, I could see how that would change things. So James, I'm going Baltimore. My model has this as a 14.5-point spread, and so I feel a little bit better you telling me it's a 13-point spread. I didn't actually look at the line, but I kind of thought 14.5 was big in the model. And I think maybe in reality, Lamar being sick definitely is a factor. But with how well Carolina's been running the ball, I could see it being a tighter game because they're going to try to control some of that clock, keep the scoring from getting out of control. But also, will they have that kind of success on the ground with Baltimore now having Roquan Smith on that defense? We'll find out, man. Baltimore is coming off a bye. They got a lot of things moving in their favor. And so either way, I'm sticking with Baltimore.
All right. Next up, we have the Buffalo Bills hosting the Cleveland Browns at Ford Field. So this one, my model says error every time I run it.
Okay.
It says does not compute. I mean, it's just it goes absurdly crazy, and I think it's because I don't think my model can come up with a victor. I think this is the first time my model's saying it's dead even, and I think it's dead even because of the change in location.
Okay.
And the Bills not practicing this today. They couldn't practice today because they got 3 feet of snow.
Gotcha.
Josh Allen is struggling. I think my model is not taking into account the fact that the qualitative and the storyline, obviously, of the Bills are coming off not a bad loss, but a disappointing loss to Minnesota, and I think they're going to come out on fire in this game, and so I'm going to go with Buffalo. Apparently, Buffalo is going to win 2 games in a row at Ford Field, which is unfortunate, but I'm going with Buffalo.
Oh, all right. Yeah, you're peeking into the future with the Thanksgiving game. I got you. I'm with Buffalo as well. My model's got it at 9 points in their favor, which I think they could actually do better than that because I think this is going to be a get right game for Buffalo. They've had a couple of those flukish kind of losses, and I think if they don't win this game, that's going to be really telling because then I think that some shit got inside Josh Allen's head, and that's a problem. But I think he shakes it off this week, and everything's going to be good. So I'm going Buffalo.
Okay. Next, we have the Washington Commanders at the Houston Texans.
Okay.
Apparently, according to my research, this is the 16th consecutive game that Houston is the underdog. It will be the underdog at home, or will be an underdog. Apparently, it's the second longest streak in franchise history, which was 19.
Yeah, that's probably going back to like the expansion years.
No, that was 22-23. Wasn't the expansion year?
I don't even know.
I'm gonna look that up. I would.
Okay.
Anyways, I want to say that was like 3 or 4 years into their existence. But anyway, I modeled this out, and I have the Commanders winning by 1 point.
Nice.
In this game. So we're
close.
No, that was their first 2 seasons, so that makes sense. Okay. I have it as the Commanders winning by 1 point. Interestingly enough, we were talking about Wentz versus Heineke earlier, and I knew I had a note about it. I just wasn't seeing it. This year, in games Wentz started, the Commanders are 2-4. In games Heineke started, they're 3-1. On average, they average 5 more points a game with Heineke at quarterback than they do with Wentz at quarterback. I'm going to stick with the Commanders because they did name Heineke the quarterback this week. If it was Wentz, I might have flipped it, but I'm going to stick with the Commanders.
Yeah, I'm going Washington as well. I've got them by 1.5, so you and I are really close in this game. When I look at my heat map, it's mostly green for Washington. I would say one of the big differences is that Houston's defense is like all red, which means it's going to be a little bit of an easier game for Washington's offense. And kind of like you're just saying, they're moving the ball better with Heineke. Brian Robinson's been carried in that offense as well. I think it's going to be an easier win for them. I could see them doing much more than a 1.5 point spread, but that's what the model's saying. And either way, that's all I need. I'm going Washington. Boom.
All right. We have the Eagles at the Colts.
Okay.
When I mailed this out, I have this as a touchdown win by the Eagles. Eagles just lost their first game of the season.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.